What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some of the data points, what moved it today, and go over everything else that you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So the market just closed 17 seconds ago, went down 5.41%. So rather brutal day. 25.79 the low, 27.48 the high, and 42.8 million shares being traded. 71.09 is the average. No news from SoFi, no SEC filings. As far as macro data, we did have one thing that came out first thing, and that was the New York State Manufacturing Index came in at negative 3.9. So that does actually signal more of a contraction versus the forecast of 11. So that didn't really spook the broader market because that kind of came out during my pre-market video on my other YouTube channel, and the market didn't really react in a negative way. So in my opinion, what really happened today was just a lot of rollover fear from last week, and no different than what I mentioned on my video over the weekend on some expectations and stuff like that. I did signal that there's going to be more of a liquidity pinch. And it's kind of funny. You see a lot of individuals trying to spin the narrative. And this is why hopefully you do appreciate my channel, because I'm not here to BS you. I'm not here to hype you up, bring you down. But it is rather comical sometimes when you kind of are neutral, even though I have a position in SoFi. If you're neutral, you can kind of see the bulls and the bears, and it's rather comical to see how they act. So you have a lot of the bears trying to spin the narrative that SoFi is down because of doing 2 issuances in a 6+ whatever month period. In my opinion, today had absolutely nothing to do with that. But again, you have bears and 66 people liking this, trying to spin that narrative. And then at the same time, you have extreme pumpers. And even though I really do like SoFi Insider, kind of gives a lot of good information, such as this right here. So SoFi is ranked #1 in all the US banks. Epic stuff. This is good information. And this is based on other loans to individuals. So yeah, SoFi is doing phenomenal, but it's interesting to see, again, you kind of have both spectrums. You have the bears and the bulls really just trying to argue about what really happened. And again, if you actually listen to my video over the weekend, with the potential for a rate hike coming from Japan, that is prompting a liquidity pinch. So big money has been, and has been for a while now, rotating out of equities. And that's usually a byproduct of kind of big money leaving the actual bond market. So it is just more of a domino effect. So a lot of indirect fears, but I think the writing's been on the wall that big money has been leaving for money markets for a very long time. So in general, this is why SoFi and many other stocks have been experiencing lower and lower volume. Plus, you didn't, like, obviously with Oracle and Broadcom, them putting out the guidance that they did, that didn't really help anyone, unfortunately. But like I said, SoFi just kind of piggybacked off of the broader market. No news or anything like that. When it comes down to shorts, though, they did return 562,000 shares. So in my opinion, by analyzing this, it kind of does signal that today's sell-off was unjustified. Or again, it could be a lot of other reasons, but I do find it not a coincidence that cost to borrow minimum is back at being positive. So whatever brokers out there that were trying to incentivize some shorting, they seem to have stopped. And if anything, they kind of raised it. So cost to borrow minimum now is 0.59%. 9.14% of the free floats being shorted, works to be 113.29 million shares overall being shorted. It's kind of happening on and off. And honestly, I look at a lot of different stocks through different YouTube channels, but one thing that I have noticed though is that you actually see a lot of stocks experiencing kind of naked shorting. So from this line right here, my apologies on, I guess, the similar colors right here. This is what Vortex selects, but this brief period where this kind of lighter line is above the kind of thicker line, I know that's a horrible explanation, but that does signal that there is naked shorting. And periodically when I've done videos, you kind of see that happening more and more. So there is some sketchy stuff happening behind the scenes, not just with SoFi, but a lot of stocks out there. So I don't know if maybe shorts have just overextended themselves and this is why they are returning, but definitely some interesting / sketchy stuff is happening with SoFi and many stocks out there. Looking at the options, we kind of saw lower volume today. 33 million in calls, 12 million in puts, and 51% of all the options being done today were bearish in nature. Although most of that was done in the first half of the trading day when things were really starting to kind of go down. Aside from all that though, from a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that 27.50 to 28. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 25 to 25.50. So we pretty much closed there already for the most part. So that kind of went down quite a lot over the power hour, but based on all that, there is definitely a lot more upside. These are all the transactions that did occur on the secondary market. I'm organizing it based on time, but moving it over to the premiums, some of the big ones, 67.3, 17.7, 7.5. So a lot of big transactions, and a lot of them were kind of sells, unfortunately. So again, you can kind of tell based on the bid and the ask. Anything with a ask is a buy, anything with a bid is a sell. And I actually, on a side note, because I like to educate, I don't like to go over the information, but I actually have received a couple comments saying that it's inverse, that anything with a bid is a buy and vice versa. So ultimately you have it as bids and asks. So these are where the transactions did occur. So for instance, right over here with the transaction at this, so the bid was at 27.40, the ask was at 27.42, transaction price was at 27.42. So goes to show that someone wanted to buy. So it is more oriented towards the ask. So when a transaction is more oriented towards the ask, then it is deemed a buy. Vice versa happens if it's more oriented towards the bid side. So anything, again, with a bid is a sell, anything with a ask is a buy. So just wanted to kind of explain that, because I think, again, I've received quite a few comments on that. So these are some of the transactions occurring on the dark pool, again, organized by time. So the market just closed and we had a 18.9, 2.8 million. So some big transactions there. Sorting it based on large transactions, looks like those ones were kind of the big ones. So 18.9, 3.3, 2. And so forth and so forth. So let me know your viewpoint on that. So it does look like, moral of the story, big money was actually selling SoFi today. So it is rather unfortunate. There's a lot of fear in the broader market, but right now with it at 25.81, it is trading between this S2 and this S3. So 25.47 and then 26.09 is going to be the next strong target / resistance point. So for tomorrow, just watch for that 26.09 to be kind of that point to break above, ideally, best case scenario. Tomorrow, though, we have a lot of big data. So we have ADP employment, the weekly, non-farm payroll, 2 rounds of that. We have October and November, retail sales, and also unemployment. So that it's going to be a fun day. All that is before the bell. And then right after the bell, we have a lot of flash data, composite manufacturing and services. So again, that is going to be the big thing for the broader market on a side note. But aside from that, looking on the actual chart, this is where you see really SoFi breaking down. A lot of stocks are kind of experiencing that today though. So it did close below that 100-day moving average. Last time it did happen back here on November the 20th, it luckily enough was able to fight back and get above that come Monday. But for those of you, again, that kind of watched my weekend video, historically, at least over the last 3 months, every Thursday and Friday we've had sell-off. This is kind of the first time that we've actually had a Monday sell-off that broke us on a technical standpoint. So this is where it will come down to the data. If the data is really bad tomorrow, then you can kind of anticipate significant consolidation. So something, again, just to keep in mind. I'm not here to pump you up. I'd love to say that SoFi is going to $100 tomorrow, but realistically, it looks like we're going to be seeing some consolidation. But nonetheless, there really hasn't been that much in articles. Market position, you see a lot of willing buyers seem to have kind of just popped, just went away for whatever reason. So comparing Friday to today, just whatever. So maybe people are rather wanting to orient, maybe be in money markets or just on the sidelines in cash. So I don't know if you guys did sell today, give yourself a shout out and potentially why, or vice versa. If you did buy the dip, what was your mentality with that? So kind of curious on that, but let me know your general thoughts on SoFi, where you see things going in the short term. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Despite the crazy day that did happen, a lot of the day trades, many of the swing trades have been on point, so definitely worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. Link in the description below and also the comments. But with all that said, you guys have a good rest of the night.